Happy New Year, everyone. Hope everybody had a great holidays with family, and now getting back into the swing of things here. As you know, we promised an extensive review of the program, and we used internal and external resources to accomplish that. We brought in the athlete group. We wanted to conduct a comprehensive analysis of current football operations, and we identified several goals. One, to identify the strengths and weaknesses of the organization's current structure and our operating methods. To ensure football operations staff is structured effectively with clearly defined roles and responsibilities. 3, determine if individuals in key roles have the skill set and experience needed for that role. And 4, compare our current approach to evaluating, developing, and compensating to the best practices within college football. There was quality feedback, and we've already begun to implement with the new structure. There is a clear delineation of focus and responsibilities between the personnel department and on-field coaches, and we're excited about the new direction of our program and really excited to have John Garrett join us. When we set forth with this, John hit all the qualifications and skill sets that we were looking for through this process. 30+ years of experience across the NFL and college football. Background includes coaching, scouting, personnel, and even head coach leadership. He's a proven evaluator of talent in high school transfer portal and roster retention. I mean, he's been a part of 2 of the last 3 ACC championships. John's going to lead in recruiting, retention, long-term resource allocation planning for our high school and our portal recruiting strategies. Coach will continue to set the direction of this program and have final determinations in all aspects. I'm looking forward to the collaboration and communication I've already seen. Of course, they've worked together before, but just a great partnership these 2 have. So, we're opening it up for questions, I believe, Derek?
Yes, sir. First one will be Ira, over on the right.
I guess we can start with John, if that's okay. First of all, welcome back to Tallahassee. Can you talk to us about this process and what attracted you to the job and why you thought Florida State needed to go in this direction?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank Michael Alford, President McCullough, Peter Collins, and Coach Norvell just for this wonderful opportunity. I had a wonderful experience at Florida State the 2 years I was here, and the success that we had and the people that I was able to work with were really the attraction to come back, and also just what Florida State is, what Florida State football is, and what it represents and the history it has. So to be part of that was very appealing, and they just reassured me when we went through the process. So it's a wonderful opportunity for me. And the process and the way it happened was we just communicated, went through a typical interview process, and I was able to get in my mind just a real satisfaction that this was a great opportunity. So I'm thrilled to be back.
You have another one? All right, we'll stay with Ira.
Coach Norvell, if you could just talk about how this process is going to work, like, is it going to be much different than what you've done in the past, just a different person?
No,
If you could
yeah,
take
it's,
us through that.
no, it's something that, as we went through the, the scope of where things were within the program, there's been, a lot of, collaboration between Michael, myself, there's things that we've talked about, in the past, even before this, has all come about, and, it just, as we got, more feedback, obviously, with the consultant coming in, being able to take a big picture, a scope, and then, even just the internal discussion, I thought this was an absolute necessity, for us to take our personnel department, obviously the focus of what we're doing, making sure that in today's age of college football, when you have high school recruiting, when you have the transfer portal, and just the awareness and the evaluation of the growth of what each room, what side of the ball, making sure that the guys we're bringing in, that it's an aligned vision. And John has been remarkable. He was great when he was here. Just a wonderful person. As Michael touched on, all the skills, the talent, the experience that he has. I think he's going to be a tremendous leader in that regards. And we needed you know, we needed to reassess and to the willingness to implement you know, some of these changes that are going to allow us to take our program to another level. And you know, it was you know, mutually agreed upon, you know, from all the factors involved, and you know, from Michael, you know, our meeting with the president, you know, the board, you know, these are things that needed to be done, and I'm actually absolutely excited for what this is going to mean, and you know, how we're going to be able to operate.
Okay, next will be Brendan over here on the left.
For Michael, what were, I guess, the most important criteria in identifying a general manager like John? What were some of the traits and aspects of his job you were looking for?
That's a good question. We thought it was very important to have NFL experience and understand how NFL front office works, but also equally as important to have college experience. They're two different organizations. You draft, you recruit. John understands that coach and him and the personnel department have to build relationships with players. They have to build relationships with families. They have to go through a recruiting process, while also modernizing the department on the back end. I thought that was two qualifications John had that really set him apart.
All right, we'll go Liam on second row.
This can be for either John or Coach Norvell. Just with the transfer portal opening up, how has this been so far? You talk about the collaboration and some of the decision making. What has been the early experience? I know it's only been a couple of days, but how has that been so far?
It felt
Go
like,
ahead, Coach.
it felt like a couple of years there. No, you know, and I'll say this, you know, with John, Taylor, I mean, they've come in, I think, whatever it's been, 6 days, 7 days, you know, just, you know, even just getting, you know, on the ground through the interview process, and you know, being able to you know, get an understanding of, you know, kind of where we are, the needs of that we have moving forward, and then just the ever evolving you know, world of college football right now. And but there's been a lot of work, a lot of communication, you know, and then it's been fun to see, you know, all of it come together, and you know, being able to assess, you know, needs, and then be able to, you know, find guys that can provide solutions at those needs that are going to be complementary to this team. And you definitely I'm grateful for the work that, you know, that John and you know, Taylor, because they both kind of come in here together, but to see them and how we've all been able to join forces and be able to push forward.
We'll go to Jerry, front row on your right.
Coach, the portal introduced a whole new aspect of college athletics.
What's the portal?
You got recruiting, you got the portal, agents for all these players, and the process of contract negotiation. Seems like it's almost an impossible task for a head coach to manage without a front office. Can you talk a little bit about the complexity of all those different factors and people?
Yeah, I mean, there's, you know, the state of college football is in a very unique place, something that's, you know, never been seen before. And you can look at, you know, professional leagues. I mean, there's nothing that comes close to where we find ourselves. And you know, I think it takes a team. It takes a team of tremendous leaders. You know, of you know, wonderful collaboration. You know, clearly defined you know, roles, and how, you know, everybody can work together, because just the management of personnel. I mean, it's 365 days a year, and you know, you have, you know, there's such a broad scope to where things are right now. And I know there's, you know, people like to talk about, you know, it being, you know, somewhat similar, you know, across, but it's not. I mean, there's, you know, it is a, you know, right now it's, you know, the state of college football is unique, because there's people that operate a lot of different ways. And, you know, we're gonna find the best way for Florida State to be able to push forward, and we have the right people in place, we have the right commitment in place, and so, you know, that's something that we have to be, you know, efficient, effective, and then make sure that we're doing the things necessary to attract and to retain the right people. And you know, I've got a lot of confidence in, you know, John and you know, his staff of what we'll be able to do together. And you know, it's all hands on deck. And administration, to coaches, to personnel, and making sure we do a great job getting the right guys.
Stay there for Bob.
Maybe for all three of you too, if possible, with roster stability being what it is these days in a lot of college athletics, how can multi-year contracts be beneficial toward the development of a young man and just keeping him on campus on a track that you guys want to keep for development?
Yeah, well, that certainly has been a big change to have that part of the recruitment process. And certainly, when you have a longer-term deal, there is a better chance to retain the player, obviously. And then there's terms in there that can prevent him from going, and then others not as severe. So it's certainly a way to predict roster management in the future after each season, or really after each semester, when you get to the portal. So it's that is one tool to be able to retain, but it's certainly been a joy to be here, just being part of the construction of the roster. And nowadays you have to do it so much more frequently than you had to do in the past. You know, I've had to get up to speed. This is day 6, and I hit the ground running. And I tell you what's been a joy is just the collaboration from Coach Norvell, the coordinators, the staff, to go through every position, how we are with our current players at each position, and then also who we're pursuing in the transfer portal at each position, and to talk through that and to manage and target the right players that we want to pursue has really been a great process, and everyone's enthused, and we really have a good team to put this roster together for 2026.
All right, Corey?
Yeah, I guess this question is for you, John. In the NFL where you've worked, the GM usually has final say. Not all the time, but usually has final say on personnel matters. Is that the case here? Who does have final say, or is it more of a collaborative effort with everybody in the program, or especially you two?
Well, it's Coach Norvell. Coach Norvell has HC next to his name. All right, so we're all here to make sure we make the best decisions for Florida State University football under his guidance. All right, so it's our job to make sure he has all the information to make the proper decision for that. And so he does a wonderful job of allowing everyone to have input. And I've seen that again in these 6 days, just like I saw it in the past. So Coach does a wonderful job just allowing everybody to contribute, asking questions, and we're here to gather the information so we can make an educated decision. And the collaboration is always key, because everybody has different perspectives, and that allows you to piece it all together, all right, so you can make a really good decision.
And and I'll jump in on that, the biggest thing for me and what, even attracted as Michael and I talked through the process of, how, what it looks like, some of the recommendations, some of the things that we got from, just some outside and also some inside, points of view. I think the checks and balances, I think that's something that's critical in today's age. You got coaches, you got coordinators, you got head coach, you got personnel, making sure that the checks and balances are in place, that we're making the best decision for Florida State. With John, and for all scopes of his title, his job, the responsibilities, and that's what I charged him with. I know Michael and everything is making sure that the guys we bring in to Florida State, that they fit Florida State, that expectation of a championship caliber individual. Everybody's got to develop. Everybody's gonna be at different places in their journey. And there's a lot of factors now more than ever before. In years past, it's okay, who has talent to play here, and then you go and recruit them. Well, now you're placing value on what the individual is. Does this guy have talent to play at Florida State? All right, well, what are you willing to, what's the value of that individual? And, in today's age, there's a lot of different ways that people are putting outside values or, on individuals. And so we've got to find what is right for Florida State. But John, and this is what, and I told him, like, we're not going to bring a player in, right, that we don't agree upon. And that doesn't mean we're always going to have the same perspective on the individual, but we got to be able to have that person. I mean, if something I like or dislike about an individual, now we get to, is what makes him right for us. And, everybody, like I said, all these players, they're all going to be at different points in their journey. But, I think that's going to be what's going to allow us to take another step as we, obviously enhance our personnel department, but also, making sure that we have those clearly defined, expectations.
Ira?
I just want to follow up on that with you. This is such a weird thing, how this all works. You had guys go in the portal, come out of the portal. These are guys you've coached, you've recruited, you've known some of these guys 5-6 years, and you're having to make these tough decisions. Is that now going to be separated a little bit in terms of the front office, in terms of the negotiation side, or is that how it's been? And kind of how do you handle that part of it when you have these personal coaching relationships as well?
I mean, we want to keep layers to the process. I mean, I don't want to be the one that's negotiating with our players. My job is to coach them, to help them develop, to go be all that they can. It is, there's part of, there's having a personnel department with, John, obviously, having Taylor, which I think is a wonderful addition, into the program, really heading up a lot of the process of recruitment and player acquisition and all that, and the team that John and Taylor get to be. Those are things that are, for our players and the retention, I think it's going to be big. But yeah, I mean, there's hard choices. I mean, I've had, so many people that are connected to our players now. And good and bad, and there's so many. Anybody on the outside, there's that the power of should, what somebody should do, or what they should look at, and that's something that for them, they've got to be able to balance, and but to have a centralized focus within Florida State and how we're going to be able to connect with them and continue to lay out the plan on the field. Obviously the financial plans that are there as well. And so, I mean, I think it's good to have some of that separation.
We'll go to Aslan in the back right.
For Mr. Alford, was there consideration to doing this magnitude of change in December of 2024? And what changed between that period and this period to make the change now?
December 24?
Yes.
This is something, we've looked at the evolution of college football and the modernization. Coach and I have talked about it for years, about how are we going to construct the department, is it in the best way right now? And we've evaluated throughout the process. Going through this last season and just seeing what all is on coach's plate now. It's different. So a head coach, not only coaching the team, but what he has to deal with, as he just pointed out, with contracts and putting rosters together in the portal. We need some more assistance in some of those areas. So going through that process and then looking at when we do it, when do we want to have this, and we looked at doing it at the end of the year. And really, because people, to do a fair evaluation, you gotta get through the season. You gotta get through roster management. You got Sue's on your roster. You gotta look out the side. You didn't want to interrupt the access to really sitting down with personnel and finding out some of their strengths and weaknesses. During the season was tough to do that. Plus, the people we were talking to about this position, all championship caliber. Some of them are still in the NFL, some are still playing. For them to leave their position at that time. Even talking to John, he was hoisting a trophy up at that time and on that great run. So going through that process, we just felt we had the answers and this was the best time to do it.
Come back to Brendan over here on the left.
For Michael, or I guess any of you guys can answer, but Michael, for the revamping the front office staff and adding John, adding Taylor, are there other positions to add to what you guys can do from a football structure? And I guess the question would be how many and what type of roles would you be looking for ideally?
Yeah, we're definitely going to add staff. That is something, but I want to get John Taylor here. Want to get those two key components of it first, and then let them do their own evaluation. What do they need? And that's something we talked about throughout the process. Like, we want them to come in, do their assessment themselves, tell us what kind of fit they want within their roles, what does John need to be successful, and we're gonna support and provide those resources.
All right, we'll go back to Ira on your right.
Michael, throughout the last 2 or 3 years with all the changes and discussions about salary caps and, you know, whether Congress would get involved and all the different things, it seems like that hasn't really come to fruition, and you're hearing numbers about quarterbacks making $6, $8 million and all these things. How are you guys handling that with all the uncertainty? What's the lay of the land today, January 4th, whatever?
Well, we've always had the stance, you know, when you say salary cap, you know, that is just what the institution can provide. We fully support the NIL on what you can go out and have earning potential above and beyond that. And want to provide all the resources for our student athletes with partnerships, sponsorships, anything that we can do and help provide them so they can go out and reach their full potential. So when you say cap, the university's capped, but the earning potential is so far greater than what the university can provide in the cap.
All right, we'll come back to Jerry on the front row.
John, I wanted to see if I can get granular on how does the evaluation process work? You got assistant coaches that are still, I guess, evaluating film. Is that correct? And-
Are you referring to high school or transfer
Well,
portal?
okay, high school, let's start there and then answer it for the
Okay.
board, if you will.
Yeah, the way it works is that, start with the coaching staff, they all have obviously responsibility over their position. And then they also have a region of the country that's been assigned to them. So they're responsible for those areas and to evaluate them through, watching tape, also talking to their high school coaches, getting their transcript, evaluating them from an intangible standpoint. And then once they gather all that information, if they believe they're serious candidates for Florida State, then they're passed on. So for instance, the position coach to the coordinator to us, and simultaneously, there's communication. So if they recommend someone, we're recommending someone, because they all have liaisons from the personnel department that are tied to and linked with each position coach. And they communicate during the season on a weekly basis. Who do you have new? Any updates on our current guys on the board? So there's this constant communication and evaluation. And then once the player keeps ratcheting up the pipeline, so to speak, and it gets to coach, it'll be, coach, this guy checks all the boxes. He's good intangibly, he fits our system, he has the required height, weight, speed. We really like how he plays football. We're ready to sign off on him. And then coach is great in the process where he's been tracking the guy along all the time, and then he'll sign off, and then once you determine that you want them, then you gotta go convince them to come. It's a little different than picking them in the draft. So that would be just a general overall approach that you all can picture as we go through the recruiting process on a particular player. The same thing with the portal, but it happens a little quicker, because once they go in, then it's a little bit of a mad dash to see when you can get him here, because now you have to condense all that evaluation in a very short time, because you only have 2 weeks, and everyone's vying for his rights to come to their campus so they can get to know him and sign off on their evaluation. So it's just a little bit faster. But you gotta remember, throughout the whole year, this day and age, everyone's in the portal, whether they're in or not. So we will assign our staff to certain schools, certain leagues, conferences, and they'll be evaluating every player on the team, just in case they do go in the portal. So, because you gotta get ahead of it. Like I said, it's really fast. And once they go in, you already have an evaluation and an anticipated entry into the portal, and you can say, well, this is one of the guys we have targeted, let's begin communication. So it's such a fun process, and I love being part of it to construct the team.
Aslan?
Mr. Alford, have you defined what success for this setup will be for this season? And is this season enough of data, this coming season 2026? Will that be enough to tell you that this can and will be successful?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at it, of course, growth, looking at where we're headed to the program. We're gonna look at what roles do we need to fit, whether it's organizationally or on the football side of things. You know, successful on the organization and the business side as we construct a staff that's built for the future, that's built to have a sustainable program. And pretty much the same on the acquisition of talent on the football side. You know, what decisions are being made? Are they building a program that's sustainable for success? Are you bringing the right people here, the right character, but also have the right skill sets to perform at a high level like we demand? So you're gonna look at evaluation, constant evaluation of what decisions are being made on the business side and what decisions are being made on the player acquisition side.
All right, Brendan?
For John, when evaluating quarterbacks, obviously you had a pretty good one during your time here and went out and got transfers at your previous stops as well. What are skills, attributes that you look for in that position?
Well, quarterback is obviously the most important position in all of sports. And it's also the one that probably, if you looked at it, is the one that's misevaluated most of the time. And it's typically because people put far too much emphasis on the physical skills. Certainly they have to have the requirements, all right, but it's more about the decision-making, the leadership, the just taking care of the ball, managing the game, and all those, there are far more intangible characteristics that are important, that lead to the success of good quarterback play than just whether he can throw it through that wall right there. There's a lot of guys that can throw it 80 yards that didn't make it at their school or in the NFL because they didn't have the leadership, the mental toughness, the ability to make proper decisions, the ability to process and go through a read, to put the ball where it should be over the course of a play. And that's the fun part of it, getting to know the player and is he a good fit, does he have leadership skills, decision making, and that's part of the process. And you find that out by watching a lot of game tape, and you find that out about researching and talking to the guys that have coached him and then fit into the offense. But certainly they have to have enough physical skill, but those are certainly not the most important things. It's been fun. I've been able to in college coach guys that were drafted in the NFL. Sean Mannion at Oregon State, I was able to coach him the last year. He became the all-time Pac-12 passing leader. Coach Riley did a great job before I got there. And then Kyle Oletta at University of Virginia. He was a middle round pick of the New York Football Giants, and been around some really good quarterbacks in the NFL and really could see their strengths and weaknesses and why they succeeded and failed. And obviously Darian Metza was part of that process of bringing him to Duke, and he's certainly done well. And one thing that a lot of them have in common from a physical standpoint is they're all accurate throwers of the ball. That's really an important aspect of the physical part of it.
All right, we're gonna go back to Aslan.
Coach Norvell, I know you said you don't really want to be too involved in the negotiations with players when it comes to contracts, but do you ultimately want to know what amount of resources are being allocated to the players on your roster?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And, obviously in today's age, I mean, you look at rosters now, I mean, it's a wide scope. you know, the cost of rosters and, you know, what people are operating with. So, I mean, we have what we have, and we're gonna work to maximize that and basically, you know, try to have a distribution of that in the best methods possible. You know, but at the end of the day, you know, that's where we talk about the checks and balances. You know, that's I think it's a important factor. You know, when you're addressing needs of a team and how you want to be able to attack those needs. But you know, you can look in, you know, the last year and even here in the last, you know, couple weeks of some of the scope of where that goes. And that's, you know, you have to have, you know, a very specific, you know, awareness on, you know, what fits, and you know, obviously, you know, everybody's pushing, and you gotta make sure that all those decisions are what's, you know, best for Florida State with what we have and can provide.
All right, Ira?
First, 2 for 1 with one question for 2 different people. John, when the last time you were here, that building wasn't here yet. I just wanted to get your impressions of what it could do for Florida State, and also maybe from seeing players coming through it this week. And then Coach Norvell, Deuce and some of the guys have decided to come back. Like, what can that do for you guys in terms of momentum?
Yeah, you know, I'll go ahead and take the players. I mean, you know, we got a great group of young men, and that I get to coach, and, you know, guys that are, you know, very talented. You know, guys that you know, have seen growth. You know, specifically, you look at Deuce. I mean, Deuce, one of the best receivers in college football. You're coming off the best year that he's had in college, and, you know, he sees, you know, opportunity to really cement his legacy here at Florida State. And you know, he's a tremendous leader for this team. You know, a guy that wants to be involved in all parts of the process and helping it grow. You know, I think you've seen that in different positions with guys that are really, you know, grasping that ownership of this football team. And you know, it's going to, you know, in today's age of college football and college athletics, there's going to be movement. And you know, ultimately, you want to see, for me, I want to see the ownership in the place. You know, you look at guys like, you know, Braden Fisk, Jermaine Johnson, you know, Keon Coleman. I mean, the ownership that they had in the place when they were here was remarkable, even though they spent a very short period of time. You see guys that have, you know, been through their journey for 4 or 5, you know, some guys 6 years that, you know, that pour everything that they've had into this program, and you know, it can be the same, because what are you willing to give on a daily basis? And guys that have chosen to come back and to you know, continue to make that investment. You know, I've got a lot of respect for those guys, and you know, obviously the impact that they're going to make.
The building.
Yeah, the building's wonderful, really impressive. It was just breaking ground when I left to go to Duke, but it is state of the art, it's spacious, the design is fantastic, and it really shows an investment to the Florida State football program and to the players. That's the daily lifestyle for the players. It appears that it's fantastic, the way it flows, how they can get to the walkthrough space from meetings, and then down to, you know, adjacent to the stadium, and obviously their game day locker room and all that. So it's really going to be a true asset in recruiting, but also a really, really great facility for the players once they're here on a daily basis.
All right, that'll wrap us up for today. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.